Welcome back. We are now in section 5, the partners and suppliers dimension for the problem management practice. In the exam, there will be only 2 of the 20 questions from this section. These will be purely understanding or Bloom's level 2 type of questions, no application questions therefore. Here we're going to understand the role of partners and suppliers, meaning third parties in this practice. So what can they do for the practice? How are the dependencies on third parties for this practice? And so let's get into that. So there are a few things that the third parties can do for this practice. They may support the development, management, and execution of the problem management practice. So for example, they can perform some of the problem management activities from the problem management processes. They can provide the software tools, and they can also give specific consulting and advisory. So let's take a look at what these really mean. First of all, performing problem management activities. Particularly, third parties can perform problem investigation and resolution activities almost completely. And maybe some of them could be performed by the organization that has outsourced to a third party. Usually, these suppliers will be specialized in investigation and resolution skills and competencies. And when that is done, those third parties should be properly integrated into the problem related workflows of the service provider organization. And the information exchange between the service provider organization and the third parties should be done properly. And there should also be policies defined as to how the supplier will be integrated and how they'll be working. And those policies should be monitored and adhered to. Then, and how it is done? It is the problem models where the involvement of the third parties are defined clearly, including the policies. So, for example, there may be specific problems where the third parties will not be involved, or maybe they are involved in all the problems. And also, how does the collaboration happen between the service provider organization and the third parties? For example, is there a single point of contact from the service provider and another single point of contact from the supplier side? So all this depends on the architecture and design solutions for those products, services, and value stream being supported by the provider for the consumer or the customer. Now, the models will have the procedures for the various problem management phases, those 3 phases, and the responsibilities will be defined. Any tools that are applicable will also be explained clearly. Then, once the model is selected for a problem, then further consideration of third-party dependencies is needed within the processes of problem and error control. What it simply means is that there may be several problem models. There can be a problem model for internally handled problems. There can be a separate problem model for externally handled problems, and a problem model for problems that are handled by both internal organization and also external third parties. Again, there can be categorization based on technology or the dimensions of service management. But whenever this third party based model is created, there should be clear descriptions of the dependencies on the third party for the problem control on the and the error control activities and responsibilities, etc. Further on performing the problem management activities, we are kind of reinforcing or reiterating the fact that depending on the third party components, this is a slightly different statement. We are saying many organizations can also be dependent on third party components. So let's say your organization is delivering a service to your own consumers, and it's possible that you have some third parties, and then some of the service components are supplied by a third party. For example, you might be using in your applications, for example, the AWS platform, the Amazon Web Services, and their components may be used in your service solution to your customer. And it can also be hardware components. So this can become a critical area to consider in the dependencies, because if those third-party components are not working, then it can lead to the customer dissatisfaction of your organization, because it's your service that they are using, and they won't be bothered too much about that you are also involving third parties. So that's what the message is. Therefore, there has to be proper collaboration between the service provider organization and, in this example, your organization, and with the third parties there. And therefore, those organizations, the provider organizations, should go for more closer cooperation and partnership collaboration rather than making it more bureaucratic kind of working, or like a basic um, relationship between the provider and the third parties, so that they can be joint working for best service to the consumer of the service provider. Then further, as you know, the problem management practice also discovers errors in third-party products used by the organization. It's possible that it is not the supplier who is identifying the third party. As you know, one of the proactive inputs for problem identification is the supplier mentioning a possible problem in their software. But again, it can be discovered by somebody from the organization itself and not by the third party if they are lucky. So therefore, these errors need to be solved, and the solution effectiveness depends on several things. One, the architecture of the solution. Is it simple or complex? Is the supplier flexible to resolve it immediately? Or can they really resolve if it's an old product that they are servicing or providing to the provider? Then they might not have resources to service, which can be really bad. Or they might say, "Oh, sorry, these are end of life already." But so you know what can happen. We never know. So all that need to be considered, and a tab should be kept on all of those things in a proper way, in an organized way. Then also the importance of the service relationship with the organization for the supplier. For the supplier, the provider organization might, or even a consumer organization might not be so important. They might have more key customers, and they might say, okay, what if we have an issue with this provider or customer? Let's focus on the other provider or customer as a third party for them. And but that can also happen, politically, and then the contractual terms and conditions, what they stipulate in terms of the role of the third party in the solutioning for the errors.